Welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria on the network service. Nigeria's ailing steel industry has been like a thorn in the flesh, defying endless efforts at resuscitating it. On Business News this morning, our correspondent Kule Adewi reports that highlights what one steel engineer says might be the saving grace.
The federal government has unveiled an overhauling strategy for Nigeria's steel sector revival. Parts of the strategy include comprehensive insurance coverage for all ongoing steel projects within the country. Some of the projects include Ajaokuta Steel Company Limited, National Iron Ore Mining Company, National Steel Raw Materials Exploration Agency, Metallurgical Training Institute, and National Metallurgical Development Center. A consultant engineer on steel, Atta Achimugu, said the federal government needs to be more decisive in its latest quest to revive the ailing steel industry in Nigeria. He is quite unequivocal that the sector can extend its fortunes to other aspects of the economy.
Ajaokuta Steel Plant, that is the bedrock of Nigeria's industrialization. I know that under this dispensation, a lot is expected that it will be done under this dispensation. You are to expect a lot of iron rods to roll out from there. You are to expect ingots to be produced from there, which we call blooms, which will feed the rolling mills. Even all other inland rolling mills in the country, like Jos, Katsina, and Oshogo. And then, one of the mill there, which I want to single out to mention to Nigeria, is the mill they call medium section and structural mill. That mill is capable of producing rail tracks, among all other type of industrial profiles. Rail tracks, as we know, is sapping the nation a lot of foreign exchange, because we're building rail tracks everywhere, isn't it? So if not for anything, that place can save us a lot of this thing. And then the multiplier effect is so massive. I don't know whether Nigerians know that one of the byproducts, I call it byproducts, of the blast furnace is what we call slag. And slag is liquid cement.
Mr. Achimugu also said government should engage the services of the right expatriates. With Business News, I'm Kule Adewi.
Thank you very much, Kunle, for the business news package on Good Morning Nigeria. Up next, newspaper review.
All right, and Chukwudi Okolibuaja is right here with us in the studio to do the needful. Chukwudi, good to see you this morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Hello, Kingsley.
Hello, Chukwudi.
I thought she would mischievously call me Mr. Brown. I am Chukwudi Okolibuaja.
I'm lost.
I'm
lost.
Well, apparently because of his outfit.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
It's called
You're always in
it's
brown.
It's called Notice Me.
You're always in brown, Chukwudi. I think brown is your favorite color.
Okay, then.
Yes. Okay, so let me quickly, and I'm just glad to have the Guardian newspaper this morning. I know somebody here will be. All right, so let's begin with the Guardian.
Oh, the Guardian.
The Guardian.
The Written House.
The Written House. Kingsley, we have the Guardian today. Does it make you feel somehow?
Somehow, how?
Nostalgic. Exactly.
The flagship.
Somehow.
The flagship.
There you go.
All right, let me take the Guardian newspaper. We've not had it for a long time. And it leads with Tinubu's burden of resetting, Nigeria in 100 days. And of course, you see all the high points of Mr. President's promises displayed right there in front of the Guardian newspaper, and many of them from fuel subsidy removal, foreign exchange, liberalization, appointment of service chiefs, Emefiele's arrest, EFCC boats removal, students loan scheme. We also have, that's on the right side, we have rising inflation, high fuel prices, bloated cabinet, and so on and so forth. The lead caption says, bold reforms leave Nigerians more miserable amid assurances. Details of that you can find on page 6. Now, Gabon coup leader General Nguema sworn in as interim president. Apprehension as Labour begins warning strike, court rules on presidential election. Tinubu not to blame, Buhari plunged economy into crisis, says Sanusi. And policemen nab colleagues for abduction and extortion in Rivers. Okay, that's the front page of the Guardian newspaper. Let me quickly take the Punch. And the Punch is leading with the presidential poll petitions. Military police warn protesters as tribunal delivers verdict Wednesday. Now, military police vow to prevent violence. Tribunal proceedings for live telecast. Court orders workers to stay away. PDP, LP confident, APC promises to obey ruling. That's the lead story on the front page of the Punch. And of course, the historic event that took place yesterday in Lagos, that's the Lagos Light Rail going into operation 40 years after. It's also right there. It's the picture story you are saying. It was beautiful to behold yesterday. And you see, of course, the governor of Lagos State was a passenger in one of those light rails trains. Makurdi 12-hour downpour leaves state capital flooded, and 12 die in Kogi crash. FRSC blames speeding. Details of that on page 5. Over 1,000 lawmakers, appointees get diplomatic passports. And just before I end the review from the Punch, take you above the nameplate. Subsidy pains. Labour vows to ground economy, begins strike. Maritime bank worker CSOs plan rally. FG begs NLC to shelve strike. And reps summon 6 MDAs over FG assets sale. All right.
Okay. We also have the Blueprint newspaper. Blueprint above the, below the nameplate, you have the following headlines. Gabon military leader sworn in, vows free polls and amnesty for dissenters. Nigeria's flag designer, Akinkunmi, was iconic. That's according to the federal government. And UK granted 132,000 visas to Nigerians in first half 2023. That's attributed to the envoy, with details on page 13. Of course, the lead story has the kicker as Tinubu, Atiku, and Obi no faith Wednesday. DSS raises the alarm, and federal government begs Labour on warning strike. These are two stories that have actually been merged into one to form the lead and therefore the headline. Some politicians mobilizing student leaders, others to cause chaos. Now, Lalong pleads, NLC Shons meeting, TUC differs. Live telecast of presidential election petition tribunal judgment allowed. That's according to the chief registrar. Nobufie directs banks and other financial institutions to shut down. The photograph you see on the front page there is that of the Honorable Minister of Information, and in a white hard cap there is the Director General of the National Orientation Agencies during the condolence visit by a delegation of the federal government to the family of the late designer of the Nigerian flag, Mr. Taiwo Akinkunmi, in Ibadan, Oyo State, and that visit took place on Monday. Kaduna to recruit 89 doctors as government approves new salary. Fuel subsidy removal has complicated our business. That's according to IPMA. Now, CBN owes 30 trillion naira. Debt servicing surpasses 100%. This according to Sanusi, former CBN governor himself. It says Apex Bank printed naira without restraint for 8 years. Details on page 6. The New Telegraph also has some of those stories that we have earlier read, but very quickly let me take others. Oil price rises to $89 a barrel, first time in 10 months. We wouldn't know whether we should be jubilating. Yeah, that means more revenue for government, but what does it mean for the cost of refined petroleum products that we also import? Insecurity, Tinubu meets service chiefs. And then oil thieves desperate to regain lost ground, according to Ijaw youths, urge Nigerians to support TSS anti-oil theft campaign. Sanwo-Olu drops works and education commissioners in new nominees lists. Assembly begins screening of Abayomi Omotosho and 16 others. Alleged assault, Shehu Kuti to be arraigned September 27th. Power, federal government demands $1.7 million debt from Togo and Benin Republic. Warning strike, banks to withdraw services for 48 hours. And then there's an interview there that is also published, pages 2 and 3. It says, Obasanjo, I knew Buhari didn't understand economics. So you have details of that story inside the paper. We also have the Nation newspaper. The Nation, of course, equally has a number of those stories on the strike and the verdict of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, which is coming up tomorrow. But tolling of federal highways to go on, says Umahi. That's the Minister of Works. More insight into Tinubu's 100 days in office. You also have that there. And CBN loan most expensive to service, page 28. Chukudi.
Thank you, Kingsley. Let me start with welcoming the Guardian to our table this morning. I can't hide my passion for them. Bold reforms leave Nigerians more miserable, amid assurances. Almost poetic, whatever the message is. So I'm happy the Guardian is part of the fray today. Umahi is saying that tolls on highways will go ahead. I think I support him if that's what it takes to repair many of our dilapidated roads. They are not in good condition. Now, tribunal verdict on poll. Tinubu will be confident, and you are pushed to say, wait for their lordships. That's talking to our fellow journalists. But then parties to a dispute are free to hold their points of optimism, if you ask me. For us in the newsroom, though, we don't speculate. We wait for the facts and report them as they come. The important thing, though, is that we've got to Judgment Day. That's tomorrow. Nigeria's democracy surely will take a step forward by tomorrow. We really have come into democracy arena, and we are going to stay on that arena on and on. We are told that it will actually be telecast. I think that's a good one as well. We must celebrate it. We're moving forward. And I bet that TV and radio stations will get a lot of money from adjacency tomorrow. That's talking about advertisers jostling for space just before the live telecast. You know, people like that point because it brings you, it draws more eyeballs to television and more eardrums to radio stations, you know. Now, in other news, the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, is pushing ahead with its two-day warning strike starting from today. The hope was that preemptive dialogue would have put paid to any further disruption of work in the name of Satan's work to rule or outright strike. The economy could do without any of these at the moment, given its dire straits posturing, if you ask me. Government and the Trade Union Congress, TUC, are actually speaking in this vein. The Nation clearly says on its front page, strike over subsidy payments not needed now, and attributes the story to the federal government and the TUC. Minister of Labour Employment, Simon Lalong, also has said that distribution of palliatives have started at the LG level, that's the local government level, and that Labour's other demands are being looked into. Actually, the Nation says wage award plan ready in 2 weeks. So the question you ask at this point is, should Labour have gone on the warning strike? That's the question one is pushed to ask. So, ladies and gentlemen, you want to weigh in on other stories, or you want to join what we just reeled out with your robust comments?
Well, I don't know. I just want to talk about the light rail in Lagos, which is quite commendable.
You don't want to talk about the light rail, the blue rail build plan for us in Abuja here?
Yeah, well,
I'm not jealous of Lagos, but my immediate environment.
You see, Chuku, whether we like it or not, Lagos is a pace setter.
I agree with you.
You know.
I agree with you.
Yes, and it's
20 million people.
It's truly becoming the city of excellence or the center of excellence, and you should have seen, you know, the operations of the system yesterday. I was proud, and I started looking deep into the future of what perhaps if this kind of development, you know, would spot around, you know, the different you know, cities across the country.
But that's actually why many people, why some people rooted for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The Lagos example, can we please make it a little national? And the good wishes are still there, if you ask me. He still can do it.
You know, I believe in that saying, once there's a will, there's always a way.
The Frenchman calls it vouloir c'est pouvoir. To wish or want is to be able.
Once there's a will, once we can drop a little water, it will certainly make a mighty ocean. It will go. So it's just the will, the leadership will, to do something, to, you know, to be part of the game changer. That's just our problem, honestly. I don't know. Kingsley.
The Lagos light rail program was conceived under the Jakonde administration during the Second Republic. And when the military struck on the 31st of December 1983, one of the things they did was to cancel that project. And Nigeria paid a penalty for it. What was the reason for cancelling that project at that time? And what was the cost eventually to Lagos and then to the nation? The same thing. Shehu Shagari's government was proceeding with the completion of the construction and completion of Ajaokuta. Then, after the military struck, everything froze. So you see, this is when you take some of these decisions, you have to ask yourself why. Shehu Shagari's government was also working on the third mainland bridge. After the overthrow of Shehu Shagari, that bridge was left uncompleted. It then took General Ibrahim Babangida, when he was relocating the capital from Lagos to Abuja, to say, look, I will deliver the completion of the third mainland bridge. I mean, you can see what the third mainland bridge has meant in terms of traffic relief to anybody in the country. So these are when we are just saying this to remind ourselves that sometimes when some decisions are taken, you ask what's
military fire.
Yeah, what is behind these decisions and what is the rationale, and you can't query. That's part of. We must remind ourselves of that, and against the backdrop of what is happening around us in West Africa. And that's where people are getting somewhat excited.
Yes. I just want to point out something again, that I just hope, another problem is in maintaining and managing these facilities. I just hope it will not become another, because if you see the terminal where the passengers are waiting, I just hope it will not become another, space for hawkers, for petty traders, for all sorts of people, to litter.
So let's have more supervision.
So
hawkers can be driven out by people who are serious about driving hawkers away. Let's have supervision. That's what it's all about.
Let's own it. Let's own this thing. Let's be keeper of this thing. We don't need to. I mean, if you own it, you will ensure that it is well utilized and properly too. So I was really glad yesterday, and you should have seen the Lagos State Governor Sanwo-Olu. He was a happy man.
Yeah, with his boyish
he,
laughter,
he was a happy man. He said to the press, "Any questions?"
Yeah.
And no question was forthcoming. So.
Let's also note this. Look, you have to have managers in place who have the right education, the right knowledge, and the right experience to manage those facilities.
Even the right frame of mind.
Yes, it is not for myself as an ordinary folk or a user. My responsibility as a user is to say, follow the instructions. Don't board here, don't board there, don't do this, don't do that. But the management of the rail service lies in the hands of those who are experts in transportation studies. How does the London Metropolitan Rail Service, I mean, how does it function? You mind the gap, you keep hearing that. There are people, who it's a system. It's a system. I mean, you go to New York and some of those rail tracks, underground tracks, were laid over 150 years ago. So how are they maintained? So these are the things that we should.
Yes.
You don't leave it.
And to leave proper labels here and there. When I was growing up, secondary school, I liked it each time I saw at roundabouts give way to traffic on left. I don't see any of those signs anymore.
What you just said now,
Imagine.
One of the hazards of driving in Nigeria
Yes.
is that if you are not defensive as a driver, you'll be having crashes.
That's the truth.
First, you don't have part of the highway furniture is not there, so that's the road signs. You don't have them to say give way or stop. Stop means stop. Give way means give way. And then the roundabout, when you enter, have you not seen at a loop here in Abuja or elsewhere in other cities? The motorist who is coming doesn't look to see the traffic. He doesn't even slow down. He zooms in.
That's it.
And then if there's a vehicle behind you, and then you know the rules, you slow down, it will be hooting.
Yes.
You just sleep. You just.
All right, gentlemen. I think it's good we end this review on this happy note. Honestly, I think
you don't know where you go.
We end it on this happy note. Let's take a short break. Good morning, Nigeria Conversation. We'll be right back.
It's Good Morning Nigeria. We are live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, as a prompt for our conversation on the first 100 days of the President Tinubu administration, let's take this background up by our correspondent, Joseph Otsen.
29th May 2023 saw the takeoff of the Renew Hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu after his declaration as winner of the February elections. Right from the day of inauguration, the president hit the ground running with some policy pronouncements that will shape his administration. It came with a bang. Fuel subsidy is gone. A pronouncement that sent waves across the country that the new administration is bold enough to shake the table by removing fuel subsidy that has been a drainpipe for the nation's resources. Monetary and fiscal policy indicators were also given to raise the country's revenue profile, ensure sustainable financing, and come up with reforms that would positively transform the nation's economic fortunes. To respond to the consequences of the removal of fuel subsidy, the government rolled out palliatives and ordered the acquisition of CNG-powered buses, as well as engage the government at sub-national levels to reduce the impact of the decision. Similarly, the National Economic Council approved the disbursement of 5 billion naira to the 36 states and the FCT for purchase and distribution of more palliatives and further interventions. In the transport sector, the president had directed the purchase of CNG-powered buses and implementation of the policy for conversion of petrol cars to gas as a way of reducing the cost of energy for transportation. Thereafter, the submission of ministerial nominees, screening, Confirmation and swearing in also set the government in a motion for delivery of its promises to the people. The president had earlier signed some executive orders which reversed the tax increase on manufacturers and suspended the excess tax imposed on single-use plastics, which would have affected mostly small and medium-sized enterprises. He also set up the Presidential Committee on Tax Reforms to harvest the tax potential of the nation for maximum development. 100 days in office of the Renew Hope agenda also placed Nigeria at the helm of Africa's affairs, with President Bola Tinubu emerging as the chairman of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. So far, the president has been dealing with the rising cases of coups on the West African sub-region, which he described as a great threat to democracy. He has led efforts to restore civilian rules in Niger Republic and others. Good Morning Nigeria today engages experts on the Renew Hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu in 100 days.
All right, Joseph Oteng giving us that background report on 100 days of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in office. So let's welcome our guests to discuss this development with us. Here in the studio, let me quickly introduce Mr. Segun Tomori, is the APC chieftain and member, Strategic Communication at the defunct APC Presidential Campaign Council. Mr. Tomori, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And also here with us in the studio, a familiar face, Mr. Nasra Kugu, is an international democracy analyst. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, and we also have with us in the studios a regular guest, Cynthia Umbamalo, the director of Yaga Africa. Cynthia, we're glad to have you this morning.
Good morning and good morning, Nigeria.
Yes, yes. Okay, we're expecting another guest to join us from our Benin Network Center. Once we get his signals from the city, we will, of course, welcome him to the conversation. Let's begin with Menasara Kogo. Menasara, yes, 100 days since President Bola Ahmed Tinubu assumed office as President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic. What is your assessment?
Yes, it's a bumpy period of harvest of progress and problems. 100 days is normally a period within which every new government is supposed to, first of all, receive reports, digest what you have inherited, and then set plans, projections regarding the strategies you will make, you will apply to move the nation forward. We have seen efforts by the government in this direction, albeit the inherent challenges associated with it. The government started with bold initiative of doing away with the petroleum subsidy. At the presidential inaugural address, the president unambiguously declared that the era of fuel subsidy is gone. And that one is a very good, bold decision, so that we will be able to now have ourselves at the correct pedestal of reality. In other words, Nigerians should not be, under the illusion that all things are all right when they are not all right. But the disappointing side of it is that up to this moment, the government has failed in identifying those saboteurs and then dealing with them appropriately in line with the mantra of the fight against corruption. Secondly, this decision has brought about a lot of issues of organized labor threatening to go on strike, issue of discontentment regarding the inflationary trend that has been associated with the withdrawal of the subsidy, and at the same time government decides to make bold efforts in trying to cushion or alleviate these sufferings by means of bringing about palliatives of various distinctions. Another area we should commend is that immediately after inauguration of the government, the entirety of the West African sub-region saw the merit in having, or rather congregating around the leadership of Nigeria by crowning our own President Bola Tinubu as the chairman of the Economic Community of West African States. And apart from that too, we must remarkably say that that was the opener of the international engagements of Nigeria. Nigeria now turned out to be the darling of international diplomacy at the level of our relationship with the Russia, relationship with China, relationship at the continental level, whereby at the level of the African Union Summit in Kenya, Nigeria was singularly, asked to bring about a lot of strategies that will redeem Africa of socio-economic, political, and security challenges bedeviling the continent. And at the same time, too, Nigeria was called as an observer at this, I can't remember the name in South Africa, these 5 countries that met, and Nigeria was really counseled, even though we were there as an observer. But because of the international prestige we have earned for ourselves under the leadership of President Tinubu, greater of the things discussed were actually evolved from Nigeria's leadership. Then apart from that, we now saw a radical departure from the tradition in those days whereby military will organize overthrow of democratic institutions, and then they will just come with cosmetic positions that will now return to democracy after some years. President Bola Tinubu's leadership brought about the end of that by saying that this time around we must take bold steps to reverse anti-democratic encroachment into our democratic institutions. And that one too has equally been appreciated at the level of the African Union, when the Republic of Gabon experienced similar thing with what has happened in this. Another area within, yes.
We'll pause you in the meantime.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you for pausing, Kingsley. All right. Let me bring in Mr. Segun Tomori, who is the APC chieftain. You've listened to me, Nasra Kogo there, talking about, well, he did mention international recognition now for Nigeria as a result of, some of the moves taken by the president. But also, one of the president's, advisors talked about the 100 days as a period of foundation laying. And I want to ask you in his own words, is this foundation really taking shape?
I think so. Thank you for having me once again. I think so. And I think the last 100 days, in most parts of the world and other climes, the first 100 days is seen as the honeymoon period for any new president and new leader, a new head of state. So, and I think this administration has effectively utilized that honeymoon period to take some bold decisions that it might not have been able to take after 100 days, which, Alhaji Menaisara has spoken about, the, audacious removal of fuel subsidy and dualization of foreign exchange rates, though it has come with attendant problems, and consequences, which is envisaged. So, and I know that a lot is being done, to cushion that effect. Nigerians, I'm sure Nigerians would have expected that a lot of these interventions, palliatives, would have come into place by now, So I think, it's late in coming, but we also know that the full cabinet was just inaugurated two weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago. So a lot of these things are in works, and I know that they will come into fruition, sooner or later. So for me, basically, I think...
Is that a plus for you, that the cabinet was inaugurated two weeks ago?
Well, the cabinet was inaugurated, and the cabinet list was sent before the expiration of the timeline as specified, by the constitution, the new amendment that within 60 days you must send your cabinet list, and it was sent. So there has to go through the process of confirmation and all that. So what I'm saying in essence is, the process for actualization of everything that we've laid, all the foundation we've laid, the plans, and he has mentioned some of the plans. We've had an audacious state of emergency of food security. I think that is very key. Most analysts don't talk about that. For the first time in our nation's history, unarguably, we have food security and water availability now enshrined in the National Security Council. So that's part of what was done, in that policy statement. We now have food security, and we're going to cultivate 500,000 hectares of mechanized, cultivation, of different staples and all that. Is all encompassing.
What does that mean for the average Nigerian?
It means affordable food prices on the long run. It means jobs. It means jobs in millions, for our teeming youths. It means development of agricultural value chain. It means agro-allied industries. So it's all encompassing, so that's on one side. We're also seeing, reforms around fiscal policy and tax reforms, which started with the empaneling of the renowned African tax leader, Taiwo Oyedele Presidential Committee on Tax Reforms and Fiscal Policy, which is already doing their work, which has been inaugurated and doing their work. So, I used to tell people that Nigeria's problem, part of our problems is inadequate revenue to cater to our population. We have a population of 220 million people, and our annual budget, in comparison with South Africa, that is about 1/4 of our population. South Africa has, I think, ×5 of our budget, annual budget. So we need to generate income. We need revenue to do more for our people. And it is not about taxing.
Wait, if you were to, because Cynthia would also have her first shot. If you were to use an adjective to describe this 100 days, what will it be?
I would say fair. And I would explain. We've seen the president that, because I was part of the campaign. In the campaigns, we've seen the president that the opposition touted, is not expressive. They don't think he's fit for office and all that. But, as president, we've seen a president that has been engaging, that has been expressive, that has been articulate, and has, most times spoken off the cuff. Not using teleprompter most times, abandoning his speeches to speak from the heart. I listened to him in the MBA conference, I think last week, and he was telling them that, where I do right, tell me. Where I go wrong, tell me. I will change course. And I think that is key. Because for any leader, I think that's a strength. It's not a weakness. For you to say, for you to admit and say, okay, I'm wrong in this side, I'm ready to change course. And we've seen that in some instances in which it changed course, when people say, for instance, there was the hula baloo about cash transfers, when they proposed to transfer, to 12 million Nigerians, which I still think is not right. I still think that what should have been done is to, rejig the program, probably scale up the number of, they proposed 8,000 naira to the poorest Nigerians. I know there was a hula baloo about the National Social Register and all that. But I look at a lot of countries across the world, Tanzania, Bangladesh, Brazil, across even Mauritania, and in a whole lot of countries, there's a conditional cash transfers for the poorest in those countries and the most vulnerable. So the problem would have been that, and I know that the National Social Register under the past administration was developed in conjunction with the World Bank. So if it wasn't up to date or up to the level as expected, because of what Nigerians were saying and the National Economic Council, I would have expected that it would be improved upon. So I still think that, we need some form of, cash transfers. And I think maybe the new Minister of Humanitarian, it will be part of what they are doing. So now we've seen, to wrap
So for you, it's fair?
So it's fair,
okay.
Yes. It can be better.
It can be better.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Shegun. Cynthia, first 100 days.
Well, I think it's been one of mixed feelings, and we've heard Alhaji speak, and my brother Shegun here also. I think for me, it's fundamentally the fact we need to acknowledge that the government in power came into a tough situation. Globally, there's a global context of economic challenges. Every country is dealing with its own levels of challenges, because we're dealing with a post-COVID world, and then we're dealing with the Russia-Ukraine war, and all of that has affected a lot of things globally. Within the continent also, if you go to almost every country, there is an inflation is almost in most of our countries and within the continent. And so if you come to Nigeria, we also have that context. So yes, we have an administration that came into power within a context that is not so favorable. And you know, for Nigeria, our issues are a lot more because of the multidimensional levels of poverty, the insecurity, multi-layered levels of insecurity across board. But for me, what I said is a bit of mixed feelings, and there's a lot more expectation. That's how I would describe it. It's because when you campaign for office, there's an expectation that you have done an assessment of the situation and that you have a plan to address the situation, which is why you vie for office. And I do believe that President Bola Tinubu is not a newcomer when it comes to Nigerian politics. He's been in the space, in the system for a while, and I do know that he's been planning to run for office at least from the last elections. Politicians in Nigeria planned for their elections almost 2 cycles before. So there was an intention to run for office. There was a plan to come into office, meaning that in planning to contest, you also have a plan on how to get the system to work, which is why I said there's a lot of expectation. Yes, it has already been said there was a bold decision to take away fuel subsidy. Right. Everyone expected that would happen, but also in the expectation is that when you do that there is a cushioning effect, a policy to help cushion the effect on the citizens, because at the end, the idea of every governmental policy or decision is to improve or to preserve the welfare and the security of the people, because the idea of governance is welfare and security of the people. So the decision was taken. I didn't think the way it was taken was a good. I didn't think it was a good method, because it was an inauguration speech, and then boom, we just heard fuel subsidy will be removed. Considering that our president is not a first-timer in Nigeria's politics,
but he had been saying it all along.
Yes,
so
but there's a way you said, because you know immediately, even before it was just a statement. The following day we had the queues, because you know you're dealing with marketers who are innately corrupt, who would look for every excuse to hoard. Because when the decision, it was a statement that was made, but immediately we started feeling the effect the following day, even before the implementation. And so for me, I do believe that, and I'm hoping that the president learned from that it's good to take bold decisions, but the strategies through which you take the decision is important. When you understand the characters, I'm using characters here that you deal with, because the truth is, when we talk about the challenges of leadership in Nigeria, is beyond the president or those who are in the elected offices. It's also about the lead individuals who head in institutions, who control the economy, who are in every sector, because everyone looks for a way to cut their bits from the country. So there's that part. There's also the conversation around, there've been some positives, but I think they've highlighted a positive. I think I'll look at, because you asked the question, how are the average Nigerians feeling it? And so yes, he's the chairman of ECOWAS. And when he talked about food security, there's one angle around the decisions that ECOWAS has taken on the coup in Niger, because Niger is a country in West Africa, Gabon is in Central Africa. Decisions on sanctions, how that impacts on internal policies. So for instance, food security is one of the agenda of this president, which I do applaud, because we do need to get food security to address the multidimensional levels of poverty. But we've also forgotten that in taking sanctions to close borders, that Nigeria is bordered with Niger by 7 countries. 7 states in the northwest and northeast. So if you think about Kebbi, Zamfara, Sokoto, I think Kaduna, Yobe, I'm looking at Jigawa, Adama, I'm looking at the map. If you look at the map, you'd see we're bordered by 7 states. Just yesterday, I was listening to a news report, and it highlighted the stoppage of every form of economic activities within these border states, because a lot of these border states, apparently, the economy was reliant on the ability to trade across these border states with Niger. But with the sanctions, what has happened is every economic activity within this region that bordered this country has basically stopped. In fact, a week after the sanctions, there were reports that trailers, trucks of perishable goods, agricultural produce that ordinarily you farm and you market. You had protests by market women saying their produce are spoiling, they can't sell. There's a lot of hunger. So if you think about the decisions of, I think what I want to connect is, yes, you heard the ECOWAS, but in decisions taken, you must also consider how that impacts internally and what measures you would put in place to ensure that you do not increase the levels of poverty. Because what we have now is different levels of multidimensional poverty within the state, and it is impacting on food security.
Okay, before I bring in my Nasara Kogo, you talked about plans before you take up a position, especially if you've had experience with government. You must plan. So if you sum up all that you've said and the 8-point agenda of Mr. President, does it appear to you that there is a plan, or there was a plan?
Well, I think for me, there is an intention of a plan, but the challenge is the pace, the strategies of implementation. And so it's one thing to say, I want to be president, I want to do this. It's another thing to say, this is how I'm going to get it done. Because the thing is, 100 days in office, it's not honeymoon period, it's a period to showcase what you need to do and what you're going to do, what you will stand for. And if you look at the general assessment, I wanted to also mention, as simple as the ministerial appointments, there were mixed feelings about that. Why? It's not because there was no thinking around who to appoint. It was about what influenced the appointment. We can tell there were intentions in those that were appointed, but is it to serve the purpose of national interest, or rather to help serve the interest of a patronage system? Because at some point you're beginning to ask yourself, can't Nigeria produce a lot more better capacities? Are some of the people who were appointed as ministers, are they the only options that we have? Especially because when it comes to leadership this time around, honestly, the president has a lot to do, because the last administration did not perform as great as people thought. And so there's a lot of work on the president, meaning that in picking the people to to be part of your cabinet, you need to ensure that capacity and competencies are first the required consideration and nothing else. Because what we need now are people that understand how to get the job done. And we don't want tough talk anymore. We've had all the beautiful tough talks. We need action. Honestly, there is a lot of hunger in the land, and we're seeing that even in the increase in crime. So honestly, what we need at this point is that, yes, we want the president to listen a lot more, but we need to start seeing a lot of action, and we need to start seeing decisions that are more driven by national interest, and that balances the posture of how we engage in the International Committee of Nations, because you need that balance. What you decide and engage at the international level must also reflect or corroborate or coordinate with your policies internally, because you can't be taking decisions outside that has adverse effect internally and not looking at how that balances it. Also, for me, it's how every sector interconnects, but how the implementation is driven by ensuring that interest of the people is the paramount consideration.
So for you, it's a mixed
feelings, but 100 days, honestly, there's still a lot more. We're still observing, but I think I always tell Nigerians, you need to be patient. Why? Like I said, I started with the fact that globally, every country, if you follow the news, I watch international news and African news, there is a challenge in almost every country. So there's Nigeria is not the worst of it all. So there is still some sense of hope.
All right, Cynthia, thank you very much there for the insights you have provided. Let's bring in again Mena Sarakogo. Mena Sara, I wanted to jump into another subject, but related subject, but let me bring in the aspect about the president's appointments. Since he came into office, it is not only ministers who have been appointed, but we have a range of other persons who have been appointed. What do the appointments reflect about the Tinubu government?
Well, the appointments reflect political considerations over and above national competence. Because I'm really not satisfied regarding, one, the security checks as well as the screening by the National Assembly. because greater number of the appointees are immersed in a lot of controversies, bordering of accusations of corrupt practices, accusations of certificates, lack of qualification, accusations of court pronouncements and other things. So I really, it marvel at me that these appointees pass through the requisite security investigations, as well as what even disappointed me most was the usual tradition of take a bow and go, to such an extent that the real thing that is expected of the National Assembly was not really done. And that was one of the byproducts of having leadership in the Assembly, being remote controlled while during the process of the appointment from outside. Up to this moment, if you look at the ministers, all of them, with the exception of 2 ministers, the one in the Federal Capital Territory who said that his only vision is to restore the master plan of Abuja, and the one of the economic, finance and economic development, none of the ministers has really spoken regarding what is his vision. All of them will be talking about the president's agenda, the president's this. That shows you that they do not even know the sensitivity of their appointments. Because if you are there, you don't need to say the president. You are supposed to say our government, not President Tinubu's government, our government, our government. You should take stake. You should take stake in the governance of the country. And I expected by now every minister should be able to bring about what are his policy plans. What do you want to do in respect of the ministry entrusted in you? How do you intend to bring about positive changes that will impact on an average common man within the period of 3 months, 6 months?
Yeah, Menasara, thanks for the point that you've made. But let's be a bit more realistic. And I get into office today and I start telling you this is what I'm going to do. It is not a brand new office, even if it's a brand new creation. Probably it's excised from another ministry. There are handover notes. I haven't read those handover notes, and then I'm making pronouncements and declaring that this is what I will do. And even in declaring that this is what I will do, am I supposed to diverge from the position of my principal? My principal says this is my 8-point agenda. So I would now say that is for you. Our government now, this is what I will do. Is that the style?
Even the pronouncement of the 8-point agenda is putting the cart before the horse. You are supposed to ask all your ministers to bring about the blueprint on how they will impact on the particular ministry within a certain period. We need KPI, key performance indicators in whatever we do. Otherwise, it will be business as usual. You need to wait, first of all, to ask each and every minister to bring about this blueprint. The integration of this blueprint will be what will globally be able to bring about to you what will be your developmental agenda, what will be your whether 2 points or 16 points agenda.
So let me also remind you. Yes, let me also remind you that, like Shegun Tomori said, these ministers were appointed just barely a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And remember also that during their screening, the various positions they now occur, were not attached. They were not, in the know of what positions.
Agreed.
So do you think 2-3 weeks is enough to study the different, ministries? So, some are, ministries lumped together.
What I am saying,
yes,
if by accident, you understand, you appoint me as a minister today, give me any ministry in question. As I'm sitting here, I will be able to tell you what I will do positively within a period of 3 months that will impact the press.
But that does not smack
in those days,
of incompetence.
In those days,
it doesn't smack of incompetence.
Listen to me. In those days, before the president will now appoint you, he will have to make interface with you to be able to evaluate your competence. But there was even an allegation that some of the ministerial nominees, the president doesn't know them. You need to engage them one-on-one, be able to evaluate their capacity to be in charge of this particular sector. That one is paramount in any leadership.
Okay, all right. Major Sara, Still on one of the points that you made, I want to bring in Shegun
Yes.
into this. You say the president's 8-point agenda is premature.
Yes.
That it should have been the other way around. The ministers will go to their ministries, see what is there, and as you have said, you probably on the spot of the moment declare what you will do. They will now have their sub-blueprints which they will give to the president. But that's why I say again, let's be realistic. The president did not drop from the sky. He was a candidate in an election, disputed though, a decision on that coming up tomorrow. When he campaigned, he had his renewed hope agenda, a blueprint. On this program on Good Morning Nigeria, we had some APC professionals. We also had APC spokespersons, as indeed we had conversations with candidates of other political parties on Good Morning Nigeria. We took them turn by turn. Issa Yuguda, for instance, was here, along with others, to explain the APC and the Bola Tinubu blueprint. So I don't know, Shegun, how, if that blueprint was already there, what is your response to what Menasara is saying? That I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, I think the president is the one that has the mandate of Nigerians to start with. In response to what he said, the president was elected on the basis of an agenda, of a policy document, of a campaign promise. When the president is elected, then he appoints those to assist him in government, called ministers of the government. So the ministers of government, they get their blueprint from the president's agenda. So, you know, everything flows from the president. So I disagree with him. Everything flows from the president. So if the presidents tell you, I have a renewable agenda, these are my, you know, these are the action plans and these are my deliverables. And the deliverables sometimes, you know, that we know in public, he was talking about KPIs. I also believe in KPIs, and I know that the president would have given the ministers KPIs. But KPIs is not what you don't necessarily have to publish it for people to see. It's for you as the leader, whether as MD, head of state or president, to assess those you appoint to say, within a time frame of 3 months, 6 months, let me look at what I told you to do. Have you been able to achieve this? Have you achieved this? Have you achieved that? And I think the president is taking that very seriously. In the inaugural meeting of the FEC, he told them it won't be business as usual. He told them you are not minister of a region, of a state or ethnicity. You are ministers of Nigeria, and I will hold you accountable. Nigerians expect a lot. The expectations are high, and I will hold you accountable. I will not let you do whatever you like. And he also said something that is very paramount. He said that because you are ministers now, don't think it's a fixed term appointment, which means that don't think that you are minister now, you spend 4 years, sorry. So that means I expect to see those that don't perform to be fired in 6 months, in 3 months, in 1 year. I expect to see cabinet reshuffle, you know, for those that don't perform. So, but on the cabinet, you know, he was saying, oh, he's disappointed and all that. Yes, I know that there are mixed feelings over the cabinet. But the president said, when they were asking him the kind of government is going to form, he said he's going to form a government of national competence, which will be inclusive. And we've seen that. We've seen a mixture of politicians and technocrats. And I'll give instances of technocrats that we have in the administration. For instance, Mr. Wale Edu, coordinating minister for economy and finance, is a fantastic economic guru, you know, and finance expert that has worked with one of the best, you know, multinationals across the world, and is renowned in that field. You have health and social welfare minister Ali Pate, that had to even reject an appointment, I think, with a Gavi. I've forgotten the, you know, it's an international health organization, and I think it's worked with World Bank and a whole lot of health, you know, international health organizations.
He was Minister of State under
Goodluck. Yeah, also Minister of State under Goodluck Jonathan. Then you also have the Minister of Trade and Investment. I think Mrs. Doris Aniete. She's also an expert in that field. You also have Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, even though she's a politician, but she's had years of experience as an humanitarian, you know, catering to humanitarian needs, you know, of the society within a locality and a state, and also, you know, a renowned health professional. So if you look at it, you also have people like Wale Edu. You have Ambassador Tugger, yeah, that is a renowned diplomat, you know, very versatile and very veteran in that field, that is manning the Foreign Affairs Ministry. So I think to a large extent, the core ministries that you need, you know, requisite performance that will impact Nigerians are manned by the right people.
Okay, Cynthia, let's benchmark.
Senior, I don't know. I'll just still on this appointment because that's where Cynthia was. I still would like you to weigh in on this. Is there inclusion?
I'm glad you started with is there inclusion.
Yes, is there inclusion? In addition to ministerial appointments, we have seen also a slate of other appointments. What do you make of all of this in the first 100 days of the government?
Yeah, I would say when it comes, I want to bring the gender angle or dimension to this conversation. So when you said inclusion, I'm thinking gender, actually.
And that was very inclusive.
That was not inclusive. I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll come back to that.
The courts had actually given a ruling which has not been overturned by any court of superior, because I know the federal government under the Buhari administration had tried to appeal the judgment and had said that in appointments, the non-achievement of at least 35% affirmative action for women in appointment was illegal and was unlawful. And in fact, in giving the decision, the court relied on the Constitution and the National Gender Policy, which is said a policy of government backed by legislation ought to be respected by government, and that the non-inclusion of women is a fundamental violation of the right to equality and non-discrimination in the Constitution. And so when we talk about inclusion, the fact that we did not, even if it was 30%, let's say we did not get 35%, if we achieved 30%, it would have been a plus, because the president also did say in his campaigns that inclusion of women and youth, if you remember the campaigns,
yes,
it was one of the agenda,
yes,
right? And so there was an expectation. And the thing I told people that Nigeria has beautiful, intelligent, competent women performing globally, performing nationally. Even if we're saying you're looking for women who maybe you want those who are part of the campaigns. I know within the APC campaigns, there were women of capacity and competence.
Are we not being
who
too
were
hasty?
both? No.
Are we not
Appointments
being
have
too
been
hasty?
done.
Because there's still more.
Minister in the cabinet, I'm talking about.
Yes.
Because in fact, the decision of the court was relying on the composition of the Federal Executive Council, because made reference to sections 147. So we're talking about the main appointment to set up the cabinet. That was actually the decision of the court. And I do believe that a president that says, I would respect the rule of law, if you listen to his speech when he became the chairman of ECOWAS, talked about democracy and upholding the rule of law, I do believe that that should have been considered. So that's one around inclusion. But I also wanted to also mention that when it comes to the conversation from Alhaji and from my brother Shegun, I feel like there should be a balance. When it comes to the role and the statement of the ministers appointed, yes, I do believe that they could have been better when it comes to the competence and capacities consideration. I do not think some of the governors that are there should, in fact, I do not think people that have served as governors should come back and become ministers. Because if one served as chief executive of a state, there is the need to show that there is some change in governance. There is a challenge. A lot of young people do believe that what they've seen is a recycling of leadership for over a period of time. This was supposed to create a sense of new faces of leadership, because when you keep seeing old faces, it gives a sense that the space is closed. I think we also need to understand the optics and the emotional impact or the psychological communication of the fact that we recycle the same face. So I will still stand on that position. If
Okay,
you wanted to create a balance of... Wait,
before we move,
I'm
yes.
sorry.
Before we move, let's
I
check.
will still stand on this position.
Yes,
but I like
okay.
to say on agenda point, I do believe that, yes, ministers live with the agenda of the administration, but so what I wanted to say on the point Alhaji made, in listening to their speech, let's say for instance you're drawing your policy based on the 8-point agenda of the president. I was expecting to see in the speech, yes, you need time to read, but you can just do a research on the ministry you're holding to see what were the challenges there and connect it to an agenda to say, if the 8-point agenda had, for instance, security, how does my ministry connect to this? Food security, how does it connect to that? As simple as a statement from the minister of the FCT. At one point I'm asking, are you coming to get Abuja to become the federal capital territory we wanted to see, or are you just coming to, is it just coming to, because it was like this goes down and all of that. And I just expected, because the federal capital territory, there's a lot of challenges, and if you draw from the agenda, as simple as how do you ensure that the federal capital territory is safe for the people, Abuja is no longer safe. As an FCT, if you drive the streets, no street lights.
Cynthia, I have to stop you.
So I do think that a lot would have been done in their statement to show me that they are really capable.
Shegun, I'm sure you understand the passion Cynthia is exuding. She's from Yaga, Africa. So yes.
And I want to respond to her. So I feel that personally, what she's saying is idealistic, but this is Nigeria. Some things are idealistic, but some things are realistic. And I also believe that personally, my belief is in an administration, in a cabinet, or in any setting, you need the wisdom of elders blended with the young people, fresh people. You cannot discountenance people and say, oh, because the person has served, you just keep them and bring totally fresh people. I don't agree with that. I know that. Because in a cabinet, the way it works is you bring a memo from a ministry, for instance. They debate the memo, the pros and cons and everything. So sometimes you need the experience, and because experience comes with wisdom sometimes, you need the experience of some elders that have maybe held executive positions somewhere to look at that memo and say, no, we did something similar to this, we did that, it won't work, let's fine tune it this way and all that. So you can't discountenance that. So, and I think that, yes, I would have loved to see maybe lesser former governors, and all that. But the president in his wisdom has made this appointment. But it's also a blend. Like I said, you have, for instance, Bosun Tijani, fantastic appointment. Digital economy and,
Okay, we have to.
And you have, we have to stay away. Sorry. I'm talking about women. And she's talking about women. We have about the largest number of women in this administration. I think we had like 8 or 9 in this administration. You have Anatu Musawa. I can go long. So she's talking about women inclusion. We should give the president kudos. He has started, and there will still be appointments.
Can I say something? Okay,
sorry. I think one or two of the guests also said that some of the appointments have K-leg.
Sorry, we want to.
Anything can have K-leg.
Shagun, we will. Sorry,
there is a problem.
Can we focus on some of the very fundamental decisions, policy decisions that Mr. President has taken within this 100 days, and let's benchmark those against the 8-point agenda and also evaluate progress so far. Let's begin with the first one, again, on the economy. The president, of course, signed the executive orders, which, of course, reversed some tax decisions. He also promised to remove fair subsidy and also make the refineries functional. Menasra Ilo Kogo. I keep calling Menasra Ilo. Menasra Kogo. Yes.
Anyway, well, it's very good. You put, I think 70% of the governmental pronouncements in the first 100 days are centered on economy. It's very good, the issue of stabilization of our currency. There is another very important, bold decision the president has made that we will not take loans anymore. I think it's very, very good, and it's very germane to our economic revival. But however, you cannot talk about economy in an atmosphere of insecurity. I expected insecurity, national cohesion. That is another area I expected the president to tackle. Insecurity, national cohesion, corruption. If you don't really midwife this economic revivalism with these three, there is bound not to be the success we are anticipating. Because here we are talking about this economy, we're talking about, again, the issue of the changing of the dynamism regarding tax regime. That one is another one as well. But very, very fundamentally, we must be prepared to fight corruption. We must be able to examine all the areas of the economic indices in the country. For example, the central bank governor, the government rushed in apprehending him. It is important for the judiciary to really speed up the trial. Otherwise, that place will be in limbo. Acting governor of the central bank, speed up the trial of this person. There are other deputy governors and other chief executive of the component authorities like the former MD of Security Printing and Minting Company. Speeding up their trial. so that the nation would not witness a situation whereby throughout the 8 years of President Buhari's, for example, somebody Suki's trial was there lingering, at the detriment of what will be the outcome of the judgment. Then secondly, as much as possible, bring about, security environment so that foreign direct investment will be able to flow into the country, so that we will be able to have robust revival of industrialization. Bring about that one, use the international engagements you are now making, trying to attract, is one of his key points of the about to start G20 summit in India. Is one of his decisions trying to woo investors. Now, investors cannot come into a country when your country is one of the worst security environments in the world. So it is very, very important there should be not only the pronouncement to the service chiefs. He met with them before his departure to India, but it shouldn't rest there. You should be able to apply the KPI, like I said earlier on, to really see, yes, they should give you the awards. Within what period are we going to have economic, security leverage in the country? That is one. Apart from that too, very important thing that the president is doing is that we are seeing more engagement with the state governors now, more than the previous governments. I think within the average of every two weeks, the governors come here, they discuss under the leadership of the vice president. That one too is commendable, because by the time you now neglect engagement with the governors, with the key economic stakeholders, and as well even the local government, your policies will not cascade down to the average common man there, and as a result of which it will be hanging in the sky. So it is important you maintain that tempo of engaging with the state governors and having, working at the same pace, rather than you thinking towards this direction, a particular governor is thinking toward the other direction. At the end of it, you will discover that all your policies and programs will only be embedded only in Abuja and Lagos.
Minister
Yes.
Kuko, I think it would not be fair to say that the president is silent, on security issues. There are quite a number. Just a few days ago, he had, the meeting with the security yesterday with the security chiefs. It may be the first, but he had
government declared that 19 out of the 34 are having.
Yes. Just hold on. He's had that meeting. You understand? He's also appointed service chiefs. And everybody agreed that these service chiefs were, square pegs in square. In square holes.
But what
we will continue with that conversation. We want to take a short break. Yes. Allow everybody now to take, have a cup of water, and then when we come back, we'll continue with that conversation.
You're welcome back. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on NTA's network service. Our three guests are still here with us in the studios. So I want to come back to Segun Tomore. Segun, what do we know, for instance, about the president's style in the first 100 days? What does it disclose?
I think the president, his style has shown somebody that is more engaging than the past president, more engaging, more expressive. The president has shown boldness, has shown somebody that has a huge dose of courage and would not be shying from expressing or showcasing that. From the president's style, we can also see somebody that is passionate about delivering, dividends of democracy to Nigeria, passionate about fulfilling his promises to Nigeria. And you have also seen him as somebody that listens. And I think that is very key, because most of the things that we say, people say, and reactions to stuff, he reacts to them one way or the other, either through his speeches or through responding to retweaking policy decisions and all that. So for me, I've seen the president that is a listener, that is more expressive, more articulate, that understands the burden on his shoulders to make Nigeria better, develop this country fast, and also take our people out of poverty. So, and I want to also delve, into some areas that Alhaji Menasara spoke about. He spoke about security and said, oh, this, that. I think to start with, service chiefs were appointed, the new service chiefs were appointed, and for the first time in a long while, we've seen service chiefs that are reflective of, I think federal character to an extent, geopolitical zones. We have at least 5 geopolitical zones represented under service chiefs, and that is very essential. I say to people that the advice the president gets, from service chiefs, from the security team, it differs. You have to bring people of different, regions, different worldviews, and all the different backgrounds, across the country, because Nigeria is a multicultural, country. So the advice you get on security, it has to be diverse, and I think he will get that from the security chiefs. But the security challenges we face is not straight jacket. It's not what security chiefs would address and will have solutions, like he's saying. It's deeper than that. We have a security system that is over centralized, especially the police force. She was saying something about, off the camera, about some things in Zamfara and everything. We are about the only federal state that has a centralized police force. That's everything, the command and control from Abuja for everything. You have people that are manning police stations, police formations, maybe in Zamfara, that are probably from the east or the south. You have people from police formations in Yoruba land, probably that are Hausa people. And, for you to police effectively, you need to even know the culture of the people, the language. You need to be familiar with the terrain. So that brings me back to, part of the problem, and I think the president understands that, because that's part of our manifesto, will be that we have to decentralize the police force. There has to be state police. It's an idea that the time has come, because we need, people that understand localities. In other climes, you have county police, that is the equivalent of even local government police, such that, if you have such a system in Nigeria, I know people say things about, probable abuse if you have state police, power drunk governors and all. But we have to address that first by putting in place, checks and demarcate jurisdiction for the state police, if probably local government police, because the present policing system we have is overstretched. There is an extent to which we can use the military. Even the military is overstretched because they are encroaching into areas they're not supposed to encroach. Okay, so addressing that will be addressing security challenges, for instance, is going to be all encompassing. It's going to be something that we even take, sending a bill to the National Assembly, amending our statutes and all that. And I think that is in the works. The president promised to rejig and overhaul our security architecture, and we have to look in that direction. Aside from doing that, looking in that direction, we also have to look at the economic side, because if you have people that are multidimensionally poor, like my sister said, and you are not addressing that, you are not trying to reduce that, you are not trying to make the economy better, you are also endangering security, because it goes hand in hand. And I think the president made that clear when he added food security to the National Security Council, because he understands, the nexus of people having, food to eat and resorting to crime, as basic as that seems.
Shegun, thank you. Cynthia, the president has done 100 days in office. That's slightly above 3 months. So he has 45 months left in this first term. We don't know what the nation might confront in the coming years or in the remainder of his tenure. Are there things the president has done now in the first 100 days that you wished, he had tarried a while? So that we have a fuller appreciation of what to do. In other words, are there things you would also wish the president did that probably he hasn't done in the first 100 days? Things he did in the first 100 days that he shouldn't have done, things he did in the first 100 days that should have been in the cooler, or things that you expect him to do?
Yeah, like I said earlier, most of the decisions taken are decisions expected. Like we talked about fuel subsidy, because that's the major decision. A lot of people did expect fuel subsidy to have been taken over a long time ago, right? Because of the dangers it had. But the challenge was the strategy and the implementation. So for me, I feel the decisions taken, some of the economic policies taken so far are things that were expected to to be taken, but the challenge for me is the implementation and the strategy. But there's still things I do believe are important. And my brother said something around security, because we're talking about security. And Alhaji also mentioned that, because if you solve security, it has a positive impact on several other sectors. The investors would come only when they believe that they are safe. And also, young people would believe that they are safe to work. You know, I thought this Japa syndrome, young people, the migration, it was a northern concept. It was happening more, it was happening more in the south. And then I was talking with some of my brothers in Sokoto and in Zamfara, and we're talking about, a lot of the young people, they are looking for how to get to Saudi Arabia or to get to Qatar or Dubai. And I said I thought there was no interest. Oh, no. Then security, a lot of them that had farms can't farm anymore. A lot of their businesses are stopped. Even education is stalled in that space. So security, I do believe that one of the things I was expecting beyond the appointment of service chief was institutional reform, as it has to do with the security architecture of Nigeria. Our Nigerian police, beyond just being undercapacitated, is underfunded. And sadly, we're having the military getting involved in a lot of internal affairs, so that it seems like there's a more funding of the of military and the funding of the police. So what you would ordinarily have is to have a Nigerian police force, whether decentralized or as it is now, that is adequately capacitated to carry out internal police sector. I do believe we need to look back to issues around state police, but in the interim, the conversation around police reform and getting internal security up to date is what I think should also be part of the conversation in this first 100 days, especially with the trends of coup and military takeover. We really need to start rethinking how much we get the military involved in internal security, because there is that lesson that we should start learning also from what is happening in neighboring countries. And I do think that is one thing I was hoping to see, a more stringent take on security beyond just the appointment, but looking at our security architecture, because what we have is obsolete. It can no longer serve us, and it's truly not serving us, because we still have reports of kidnapping. Bandits are still taking over communities. We're losing citizens. Nigerians are paying for ransom rather than investing the money for their personal development, and I think this is a major challenge.
Cynthia, thank you. I'd still like to remain with you before we bring in May Nasra Kugo. Still looking at evaluating the quality of the policies that Mr. President had taken within 100 days. And I know that you started by alluding to the border closures and all that. But let us look at some of those policies that border on the economy and helping to alleviate poverty and boosting productivity. Locally. That's the Finance Act 2023 and again the executive orders. In the long run, can you just evaluate the quality and the impact it's likely to have, not just within the short term, but also in the medium and long term?
Yeah, I think if you look at the assessment of the suspension of the Finance Act 2023, I do believe that it should be important to look back and to get that implementation ongoing. If there's a challenge with it, then do the necessary work that needs to be done to it. But I do believe that when it comes to issues of the economy, you don't stall so much, because what you want to see, once you start implementation, if it's going to be a hard hit, it's better we feel it. It's like ripping off a bandit. You feel it immediately, and then we start adjusting, rather than to delay the pain, right? So I do believe that is one thing that needs to be looked into. The other conversation around, because we're talking around the economy policy generally, there is a lot, the conversation around the tax, that is an important decision that was taken, because it's not about giving out cash and all, it's also about reducing the impact of taxation on the people, because it's not everyone will have access to the cash transfers or to the there is the 5 billion that would be going to the states, yet to see how that will be implemented. But it's beyond just that. It's also around the tax region. I think that was an important decision. Because of the informal sector that we have a lot of citizens who operate within the informal sector, especially for young people and women. And multiple taxation affects how their levels of productivity, especially with the high level of inflation. So I think that's an important decision that we should start seeing the impact subsequently. But there's something we forgot to mention: the student loan.
The student loan,
precisely. Right? That was one of the first legislation that was signed by the president in June 12th precisely. And the idea is it sets up an education loan fund that students can access to help indigent students take care of their financial needs. However, we had looked at, I feel like that act needs to be revisited, because
I think it is. It is at the moment. Sorry, let's quickly have him and then we'll end up with Nathan.
Yeah, so my own idea about taxation and the reforms that will go on there should include, like she said, there's a lot of presently we are not taxing a lot of the informal sector, and we can get a lot from them that are not taxed at all. The artisans, the mechanic, the everything. So I am saying that there are a lot of people in the informal sector.
Because the order is reducing tax to enable manufacturers.
I'm not going to the reform. We've spoken about that. That's on excise duties and all. I'm going to the there is a committee.
Oh yes, that's the tax reform. Yes.
Yeah. So that's what I'm delving into.
Okay.
So I would like to see. So I would like to see that informal sector, that should be a template for taxing them. Then the untaxed. We have a lot of untaxed Nigerians. Then we also have a lot of wealthy Nigerians that are not paying the right taxes. People having 7 cars, having houses, having companies, and paying pittance. Defrauding the system. Through collusion in some instances. We need to look into that area. And we'll get it right in that area of tax.
And Sarah, let's help you.
Yes, some of the things I will have expected the president to have done, otherwise, will have been this issue of palliatives. These palliatives are not really reaching the common man. In the lexicon of political mathematics, the directional compass within which you will be able to evaluate any democracy is whether or not it tallies with the aspirations of a common man. Under Section 14, subsection 1, sovereignty belongs to the people. This idea of doling out money, giving money to governors and the rest is counterproductive. I don't see it right to really use subsidy in subsidizing the withdrawal of the subsidy. I expect the government to have really think of what are those things that are the problems of the district. It is because we are exporting the crude oil for refining outside. The cost of refining outside, the cost of transportation, the cost of bringing them back. The government should really sit down and look into the possibility of revamping our refineries and then giving license for modular refineries so that there will be so much availability within the land, so as to cut the cost of the transporting out, the refining out, and then the return back and other things. So I expect government, if government will have used those money given to the governors in establishing refineries across the country and revamping those ones. And if those humongous money used in the revival of the refineries, of which we have not seen anyone functioning, the government should be bold enough to really apply anti-corruption measures to deal with those people that were the suckers of the economy in that context.
Well, one of the new ministers in charge of oil says that the Port Harcourt refinery, currently undergoing rehab, will be functional by the close of the year.
So we have been experiencing those deadlines. But let us see by the December whether Nigerians now will wait and see. We have had those ones during the Buhari days. But what is important is the practical scene. People are seriously suffering currently. You understand? There should be measures that will have direct impact on the psyche of an average common man, rather than thinking of using it through the instrumentality of
May Nasara Kogo, international democracy analyst, we feel your emotions. We're all part in it together. We just need to be optimistic and hopeful, and of course play our part. May Nasara Kogo, thank you very much for your perspective.
My honor to be here.
Let me also appreciate Shegun Tomori, APC chieftain and member strategic communication at the defunct APC Presidential Campaign Council. Shegun, thank you very much for coming. And my own sister, Cynthia Mbamalu, Director, Yaga Africa. Always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
All right, let's go over to our sports desk for the latest in the world of sports.
So that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria for today. We appreciate your being with us. Tomorrow is another day, same time, 7 in the morning. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. Please do join us for a special program. It's called Renewed Hope, Bold Steps in 100 Days. And that will be coming up on the network service of the NTA at precisely 10 o'clock this morning. From all of us here, have a great day. Bye-bye.